welcome to the GDPR compliancy checklist for October. And we're now moving into an area that I think lots of businesses will be faced with. It's a challenging area under GDPR, and that's the whole thorny topic of privacy notices. So Rasia, these are going to be much trickier, and when we're talking about privacy notice, we're talking about notices you might give to employees, notices you might give to customers on websites, etc. Do you want to talk to us about why crafting a privacy notice that's GDPR compliant is much more difficult than it might have been in the old regime?
Yes, of course. So it's absolutely a challenging thing. So all the data mapping exercise that we were talking about in previous sessions, now you need to look at that to make sure that you understand all the processing of personal data, because you will need to include all that information in your privacy notices, and also the information that you need to provide to individuals changes depending on if you are collecting the data directly from the data subject, from the individual, or if you are receiving data from a third party. So it's something that you really need to check. You need to make a list of what information you need to include in each case, and then do that tick, 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 tick that you are including every single bit of information included there. So that includes obviously the categories of personal data you are processing, the purposes for which you are processing the personal data separately and very clearly, and then you need to include who the data controller is. If you have a representative or DPO, you need to include details of them. You need to give information about all the data subject rights one by one, explaining how they can exercise these rights, and also regarding the transfer of data and whether or not the organization is transferring data out of the EEA, whether or not that is secure transfer of data, and so on. But the thing is not only the content, the thing is also that you need to be transparent, and you need to think on the audience, and you need to make sure that your audience understands. So it's not the same giving information to your employees or giving information to customers, but also I would even say that it's not the same giving information to customers who are young people, or customers who are vulnerable people, or any other individuals. Since the GDPR is asking you to be transparent, and it is a requirement, it's not a recommendation. Drafting the privacy notice is really, really challenging thing. Because if you think in practice, Sally, who reads privacy notice apart from us when we are working? And if you read the whole thing, I mean, I ask my friends, for example, as customers, when you are in downloading an app that you are going to use and you are displayed with the privacy notice, do you read them? And none of them say yes. If you as a data controller need to assure that the individuals you are processing the data from have read this or have been given with that information, you need to think about more attractive and effective way to do so. So the ICO is recommending to use layer information, just-in-time notices. So I've seen as a customer in some apps that I use that, for example, when I publish a picture, there is a notice display that, do you know who is accessing to that picture? Click here if you want to know more. These sort of things, and also introducing the use of symbols and icons that could help the individuals to recognize each bit of information, what's about. So, for example, if I'm interested in knowing how long this data controller is keeping my personal data for, so then if I see a clock, so perhaps that gives me an idea that this is the bit of information I'm interested in. So definitely challenging times for all of us, in order to make sure that we comply with all these requirements with regards to privacy notices.
So just to drill down a little bit, Rasia, into privacy notices and your point about the ICO recognising, well, the regulators recognising that people don't read these, but in fact we're actually seeing a requirement to have more information, not less. How do you make these interesting? How do you make people want to read these privacy notices, especially when they're looking at applications on a phone, which clearly is limited in terms of space.
Yeah, so you need to make sure that the language is absolutely plain, and even you need even to consider working with marketing teams to make it a little bit more attractive. If an app is used by children, you need to think about how a child would understand that. So you really need to think about using different fonts, even considering videos, or even considering any other sort of comics or things that they will recognize, they will understand, and also in a limited space.
And then just on the just-in-time notices, that works, does it, by showing you a statement whenever your data is going to be used in a slightly different way from the way it may have been used before in that story of that application. It then pops up and says, you're about to do this, which means that we're going to do this with your data. So it gives you that opportunity to not do that, take that step. Is that the thinking behind that?
Yes, absolutely, that's correct.
Yeah. Good. So that, I think, is everything in terms of privacy notices. There's a lot to do there and a lot to think about in terms of getting those right, and certainly October is probably not soon enough in terms of starting to redraft that. And that's all for our October GDPR compliancy checklist.